we're together as we walk on by, and we fly just like birds of a feather. I want you no lie. All of the people around us, they say, can they be that close? Just let me stay for the record. We're giving love in a family dog. We are family. I got all my sisters in here. We are family. Get up, everybody, and sing. Sing it to me. We are family. I got all my sisters with me. We are family. Get up, everybody, and sing. Living life is fun, and we just begun to get our share of this world's delight. High hopes we have for the future, and our goals inside. We know we don't get too fast. Here's what we call our golden rule. Have faith in you and the things you do. You won't go wrong. Oh no, this is a family jewel. We are family. Sing it to me. I got all my sisters and me. Sing it to me. We are family. I can hear you guys. Get up, everybody, and sing. Ooh, we are family. I got all my sisters and me. We are family. Get up now. Get up, everybody, and sing. We are family. I got my sisters and me.
I love how people comfort me when I'm having a bad day. I love my specialty. all the candy. Yummy about sugar-free. We're always having fun even though we're ready.
Especially this. For example, start with love.
The teacher and my friends.
I love to learn math.
The teachers here are nice and caring and help us when we need help. I love trying out new things in my class. I like how the principal says hi. All the fun projects we get to do. I like the gym teacher. All the subjects very fun. I love how friendly and helpful people are because all the teachers keep us safe. You can learn a lot and everyone's kind. I like sitting in the carpet with my friends. I love my teacher because she always teaches the things I say. Shelter Rock is a wonderful place to learn. They teach me good education. When people be kind to me. Recess and playing with my friends. I like the great bonds that you can make with the students and teachers here.
So I just want to thank my staff for coming and the families that came up to support us. It's a great pleasure every day to get to come to work with such amazing people, and our kids are very happy to be there, and that's what it's about. So thank you. Thank you.
It would be inappropriate if I didn't say something. That staff, the past 6 years, has been through a lot in terms of leadership and turning principles, and I can't thank you enough for your leadership for bringing us through that in the last 2 years with Anna coming in and really creating a solid, positive culture. To see that you've been great, your faculty's been terrific,
Yeah.
the kids have parent in the back who helped us out during the hard time back there, right? So thank you very much. It's much appreciated. You want to go home and do your lesson plan? It's okay. Thank you.
Next on the agenda, our student reps are here. Or you just want to wait a few minutes?
Okay, so good evening. I'm Larissa Costa, DOT president, and I'm here with Claire Herrera, which is vice president. We're here today to talk about some of the events that happened at DHS this month. So on January 10th, the Danbury girls 4x200 track team ran the state's best performance with a large school winning time of 1 minute and 46 seconds. Another congratulations to Tyler Warren for winning the United Soccer Coaches All New England Award. On the 20th of January, the Danbury boys wrestling team won against Mont Anthony 49-21. Congratulations to Robert Murray, who was a finalist in the National Cross Country Coach of the Year, an award given by the NHSACA on January 17th. 3 weeks ago, the Model UN Club at DHS took part in the Yale Model UN Conference, as they do every year. Our BOG treasurer, which is not here today, Becca Castillo was an honorary delegate, and Victoria Wolf Anderson won first place in the Yale Essay Writing Contest and will be published in the Yale Political Relations Journal. Also on February 1st, the Danbury Girls Track and Field team won FCS West Division by 154 points in the 15th event.
And semester 1 report cards were finalized on February 3rd, ending the marking period with one more semester to go for seniors like me and Marissa. DHS had a successful fundraiser that also ended February 3rd, partnered with the Jericho project that involved each Mentor Monday class. Each class brought in $15 for a box of Krispy Kreme donuts and a chance for a Hatter's Cafe breakfast. On February 4th, the Connecticut Commissioner of Education, Dr. Cardona, and staff came to DHS and met students, learned about the programs going on, such as the Early College Opportunity with Martha, and discussed K-12 issues with Dr. Sal, Mayor Mark, and CTA members. The Ladies Hatters won on February 6th with a 52-51 victory in overtime against Norwalk, securing a top 4 seed in the upcoming FCS playoffs. The Danbury cheer team won their FCX competition for the 4th year in a row on February 8th. The Hatters welcomed Kevin Williams, a history teacher at DHS, as our new freshman baseball coach today, as well as Angela Michelini, a health teacher, as the boys' new tennis coach. And last Saturday, the Key Club at DHS partnered with a local Chipotle and a fundraiser for Camp Sunshine, making $85. And as well as today, another fundraiser happened. A chili cook-off put together by the peer leadership class with all proceeds going to the Women's Center of Danbury. And this week, the freshman class of 2023 began selling Valentine carnations, their fundraiser to begin collecting money for their prom. And thank you guys for listening.
Thank you. Moving on the agenda, we're going to have a presentation, portrait of a graduate steering committee by Assistant Superintendent Mr. Walson.
Good evening, everyone. That's a good time. So I have the pleasure of introducing the portrait of the graduate steering committee. I'm going to ask them to come up and get some chairs and join me up here. And while they are,
There's some up front.
Great.
There's one on the student rep.
Larissa, can you slide that mic over since it's wireless? You guys are going to need it, so just just making sure you guys have it.
I'm just going to put it over here because I need to advance the slides.
Okay, I think we are all in place. So I want to take this opportunity to introduce the team. This is the steering committee, as I had mentioned, I believe a couple of weeks previous at a board meeting, made the team aware that the district is a recipient of a Bar Foundation grant. This grant allows us to go out and, quite frankly, do the work right. So last year, as part of the strategic planning process, we were trying to incorporate the portrait of the graduate work as part of that process. We recognize and acknowledge that the portrait of the graduate work, quite frankly, requires a significant lift from the district. And so we were made aware of a grant to help us move this work forward. You'll learn in a couple of weeks when we share the strategic plan with the board that the portrait of the graduate has a prominent place in the plan. And this evening is specifically about the launch of the portrait of the graduate work. And so to my right is the steering committee. I'm happy to say we are in good hands with teacher and student leadership. And I'm going to start with student leadership. And so two of the faces you'll recognize because they are on our board. And so Clara, thank you Clara, and then Larissa, who you just heard the two of them speak. And then we also have Casey to their left, Casey. And then Nick, who was also at one of our citywide PTO meetings. Most recently, some of the board members might remember him from there. And so we have a number of administrators on the team as well. Some of them are here this evening, some of them are not. Associate Principal Dr. Martins from the high school, Principal Rivera from South Street Elementary School, Principal Weber from ACE, Assistant Principal Perez from Rogers Park Middle School, and of course Dr. Mead, who was in the back, I saw her somewhere, Director of Family and Community Engagement. I believe at a previous meeting I had also shared that we'll also partner with the Center, Connecticut Center of School Change. There's a consultant working with our district. She has also worked with other districts and helped lead this work in those districts. Her name is Patrice Nelson. She couldn't be with us this evening, but you will be seeing her at some point during the work. And then, of course, last but not least, we are in the very capable hands of two teachers from the high school, and that is Elise Tobin and Ray Clay. So thank you, team, and PowerPoint is already up.
It's up.
All right.
Woo!
Okay, so I have the pleasure of introducing the first two slides, and then presentation will be underway. And so we have a few learning targets this evening that we're going to share with you. And so one is familiarize you with the concept of the community portrait of a graduate. Two, explain how the portrait of the graduate fits in with the larger work of Danbury Public Schools. And three, inspire you to embark on a journey to advance all learners, all students to their highest potential.
So you may be wondering what a community portrait of a graduate actually is, right? So essentially, sorry, I was using my teacher voice with the microphone. It is the skills, right, the knowledge, and also the dispositions, what we would often refer to as the soft skills, right, that are valued not only by the schools, right, but also by the community. This is a community-wide effort. That is why on the steering committee we have people from elementary all the way up to high schools, up to the high school, well, multiple high schools, ACE as well, and Reach. They're the skills that are critical for college, career, community, and life, right? So wherever our students go, once they have graduated, we want them to be advancing.
Back to me.
Back to you.
Okay. All right, so I'm sure the question is, because we've had a number of initiatives over the last year and a half, and the question I'm sure from many folks in our community is, how does this project fit in with the other district initiatives and goals? We're ready for the next slide. And so I'd like to bring your attention to the cycle that you see in front of you. You might recall during the 17-18 school year, the district was a recipient of the Nellie Mae grant. That work helped us to get out into the community, interview and engage stakeholders, and talk about inequities in our district, and begin to determine and uncover why we were experiencing those inequities, and trying to identify solutions to that work. And so at the beginning of the 18-19 school year, the superintendent charged the team with beginning to develop a strategic plan. In December of 2018, we engaged close to 50 stakeholders in the community. And those stakeholders, we solicited feedback from over 50 community members to help inform our district vision and mission. And the vision we landed on was Danbury Public Schools aspires to advance all learners to their highest potential. And then with that vision, and in order to move that vision forward, we developed a mission statement in which Danbury Public Schools, in partnership with families and the community, provides transformational learning experiences designed to nurture thoughtful and prepared graduates. And so the vision and mission work, and oftentimes communities will see a vision and a mission and not really sure how the vision and mission are going to be operationalized. Like, what does that really look like? We are seeing the portrait of the graduate as a way to operationalize the vision statement. And so if folks are wondering what that looks like, we are seeing, by identifying the skills, knowledge, and dispositions of a Danbury graduate, we're able to articulate a collective vision for all students and further operationalize the vision and mission by shaping student learning experiences. And so previously you've heard Kara, you've heard Melissa talk about, hey, learning, when talking about kids' learning experiences, once we have a portrait of the graduate, perhaps we can have academies to help have academies and talk about experiences out in the community. And so we are envisioning, once we have a portrait of a graduate in place, then that would help inform curriculum writing, that would help inform what experiences are going to look like in our community. But we want to make sure we have that first. And then last but not least, one might ask, how does the equity work fit in all of this? And so when we are designing learning experiences, we want to make sure there is equitable access for all the students in those learning experiences. And so we're seeing this will be encyclical and making sure it's connected all throughout. The equity piece is something that's going to live throughout all of the work, and the implementation of the strategic plan, we will be back in front of you about a month from now. And you'll hear a little bit more about what those strategies look like to help accomplish that.
Thank you. So our big question today is, who will this portrait serve? As a student of Danbury High School, I'm invested in students like myself. Students such as the members of the class of 2021, like myself, we will be graduating soon. This here is a few of my classmates that will soon be graduating and venturing out into the world.
But portrait of graduate work is not all about just the Danbury High School. We need to think about all of the students in the Danbury Public Schools. We need to think about the future that is pictured here at Rogers Park Middle School. These are some of the students whose education can be shaped by the portrait of graduate work.
It is critical for this work to be district-wide. We need the portrait of a graduate to help shape the education of students who are just starting here in Danbury Public Schools. These are students who can be shaped by the portrait of a graduate work and helped in achieving their dreams. So what are some of these dreams? What do they want for themselves? Let's hear it from the source.
I think a police officer.
You want to be a police officer? Why? You want to be a president? Yes. Why do you want to be a veterinarian? You like to protect animals in the whole world. When you grow up, a singer. Why? You want to be a teacher, Caroline. You want to be a teacher too? Wow, there's so many teachers. Why do you want to be a teacher?
because I like to do the names and give out the crayons and tell people a police officer.
Really? Why do you want to be a police officer?
So I can protect people.
Wonderful.
So those are their dreams. These students who entered kindergarten this year will graduate in 2032. The bulk of their work life will be in the second half of the 21st century. What will these students need when they graduate in 2032 to fulfill these dreams? Let's see what skills that they think they need to learn in school to achieve their dreams.
What do you need to learn? You need to be nice. What do you think you need to learn how to do to be a great teacher?
To help people learn.
Well, what do you think you need to learn how to do well in school to be a great teacher?
To be nice and respect.
That's wonderful. Anything else you need to learn?
To be nice to people who are not doing the correct thing.
Okay. Do you need to learn anything in school that's going to help you to be a great police officer?
A little bit.
Okay. What do you think you need to learn in school?
I think I need to learn how to get faster.
Get faster. Like, what do you need to learn in school to be a good singer? That's a hard question.
That is a hard question, right? I mean, then that's the question that Portrait of a Graduate is meant to be working on. Mr. Fleck?
Okay. Yes. Okay. So that is a hard question. It's hard for us, and we are adults, and that is where the Portrait of a Graduate comes into play. So it's up to us, the community, to create the environment in which they can achieve those dreams. So what will these students need in 2032? We are asking you to help us in creating this vision. Now that we know what it is, how do you fit into this? So we want your input. We are going to be seeking community-wide input on this project. That means talking to all constituent groups, educators, students, alums, business leaders, community leaders, and so on. We cannot make the kind of transformational change without you. As Mr. Walton explained, we have been working on this change for some time now. We would also ask that you participate in these opportunities. We'd also ask you to be our voices in the community. If people are wondering what Portrait of a Graduate is, please tell them and spread the word. Mr. Walton has a few words.
So long term, and by no means is the Portrait of the Graduate ready now to be leveraged during the budget season. But certainly moving forward, once we have a portrait in place, we envision the portrait work playing a significant role in during the budget season. And so if the community has bought in to the community portrait of the graduate, then we would have to acknowledge the fact that we're going to have to resource the ask annually to make this happen. Dr. Pascarella, prior to this meeting, talked about an inverted triangle in which, and he's talked extensively about students who have come to the community most recently have been very needy in terms of resources that they've needed, right? And so part of our acknowledgement is if we're going to realize the dreams that we talked about in our opening slides, particularly when we're sitting here on 2032, if these students are going to be our Danbury portions of the graduates, we're going to have to resource programs in ways that possibly we have not done before. And so we're acknowledging that our students are coming in needier, and so kids need to leave at first, second, third grade ready to learn to read in order to project as graduates later on. We don't resource and make those investments early, then any portrait that we envision is not going to be realized. And so part of our annual campaign, would be to point back to the portrait of the graduate that this community has designed and continue to get behind that and continue to ask the city, ask the district, ask the board to resource accordingly. Brett?
Yeah, so leaves us with how can you reach out to us? If you have any questions, you can feel free to reach out to us at the email we have up here. It's POG for Portrait for Graduate at danbury.k12.ct.us. And you can feel free to email us if you have any questions or concerns around this as we continue to do this work, preparing for our first coalition meeting in 2 weeks.
Thank you. Any questions for the steering committee?
Kevin, this is one for you. I think.
Sure.
Because I feel like we just went through this. So can any of the work from a prior committee, our community engagement, can that be used, or is this a totally different outlook to the portrait?
So your feelings are accurate because we definitely just went through this. And so as part of our launch for the strategic planning effort, we asked for feedback from the community to help inform the characteristics of a portrait of a graduate. When we applied for the grants, one of the first things they told us was, we appreciate the fact that you guys have done this work, but you have to start over if you're going to be a recipient of this grant. And part of the rationale was that even in a year, there could be significant shifts in the industry that could change the community's perception of what a graduate should look like. So we were encouraged. They want us to acknowledge the work that was done, but it can't necessarily be, slided over. I mean, we explained to them we were in the middle of the work. I think one of the reasons we received the grant is because they appreciated the fact that we went to the work, and if we did not receive the grant, we were going to continue with the PhD work anyway. But they also made it clear they wanted us to start over. So here we go.
I have a question for students. I'm just curious. You're graduating this year?
Yes.
Knowing this, would that have helped you plan out what you're doing in high school?
Definitely.
How so? Just
Just because when we were even making videos for Portrait of the Graduate, they asked me and Casey, like, what do you guys want to be? And I want to be a social worker. And then when they asked what resources would you need, even I was stumped at the question. So at least knowing that we have a project in motion that would help us identify the attributes you would need would help not even just like seniors about to leave, but freshmen and sophomore kids in middle school if they already have an idea.
You think that would help you in middle school as well?
Yeah, because some kids already, like, at 5 years old know what they want to do. Like, they want to be a police officer. That might change, but some kids are already, like, destined to become something. So with that, they should already know what attributes would help them in the future.
So I'm going to just say something quickly about the students to my right. Kara just reminded me that last year, as part of our Nellie Mae work, and then also as part of this grant, one of the conditions was that student voice is elevated in this portrait of the graduate. And so oftentimes we'll talk about the fact, and I'll brag about the fact, right, because we were excited and proud of the fact that we had like 50 stakeholders as part of this session to help inform the vision and the mission. We had no students in the room. We had no students in the room. And meanwhile, I think I've been in 2 or 3 meetings with these young people to my right, and there were meetings where they totally shifted the conversation because of their feedback. And I think after the first meeting, they were comfortable enough to push back and make sure that their voice was heard and was considered in the conversation. And so we are mindful that they need to be at the table in shaping this new portrait. But Rachel, that was one of the things when talking to them about our experience, and when they recognized that we didn't have students at the table, I think we actually offered that. They reminded us people who need to be at the table.
We also will have students that are the students to my right are very academically successful, very involved in the school. We're going to have students as well who maybe fit different categories of involvement, and their feelings that education is as relevant, right, may not match. So, yeah, that's part of it too.
Yes, yes, absolutely, absolutely.
You know, our new budget speaks to a lot, some money we're spending in culture and climate. Talk a little bit how you think that might impact the culture of the high school or the climate, this work with student voice.
Yeah, I mean, I think there are a number of things. I know as a teacher, one of the key struggles that I see in my classroom, and maybe you could tell me if you've seen this in your own, is a lack of connection between what they are learning and how that is going to be applicable. Why am I learning iambic pentameter, Ms. Tobin? Am I going to have to write a sonnet, right? So this work is taking, right, what students actually need, figuring out what they actually need to learn, and then being able to, as Mr. Wilson was saying, fund programs that then give them that, right? So then culture and climate, I mean, when students are more engaged in the work, the climate is better. I mean, that's the biggest lever, right? Engagement, at least from my perspective, it's engagement. And so you can't just keep saying, oh, let me just get a new YA novel because they'll be really engaged in this Hunger Games or whatever. You know? It's not necessarily just a new or different book. It's a completely different approach, a transformational approach. And so how do you get that? You have to start somewhere and figure out what that has to be. I don't know.
I think Portrait of a Graduate would really help them because I've heard so many students like question what we're learning as to how it's going to help them in the future. And I just think this shows, because once they graduate, that's not like their last step. Well, once they graduate with a good education report, like how we want Danbury Public Schools education to go, they're going to graduate and come back and help the community. Like, we're teaching the students to like grow, but grow as individuals as well.
Can you tell me about that youngster you babysat that asked for?
Yeah. So I tutor this kid, and I'm doing math problems with him, and he's doing multiplication right now. And I was showing him, I was like drawing arrays so he can learn how to do that. And instantly he's like, oh no, like you don't need that. And then he goes, oh, Alexa, what's 10 times? So he just thinks like technology, he just relies right on that, and you give him the answer and he just writes it down. He's like, okay, I'll send it.
That's not to say that they don't need basic math skills, right? But just to say youngsters are using the tech, right? And so how do we incorporate that? How do we actually use that as a skill and teach them how to cull that information rather than just saying, put your phone away. Sometimes they do need to put their phones away, but thank you.
Could anybody give me a simple definition as to what is a portrait of a graduate so that I can have that as a takeaway? Is it a concept? Is it a program? I'm not sure how to, in my own mind, how to define this.
So I would say, this is how I would define it. It's what skills, what knowledge, and what dispositions do we all value that we need students to have when they leave school. It could be something like integrity, or it could be something like critical thinking skills. They could be broad categories, and then what you do is you take those broad categories and you can list out discrete skills beneath them. And then, right, the hope is you use that, right? You use that to drive institutional, systemic change. That's the goal. Yeah, does that, or no, is that too?
But you cannot,
Yeah.
you cannot say that. You have to reduce it to a more simplistic
Okay.
takeaway so that, within 30 seconds or a brief thing, people can support this and have an understanding of what it is. I keep harping on the point,
Right.
you're an academic person, there's too much academic jargon in here.
Okay.
You've got to reduce it down to a common, something that's
What do our
common.
students need to succeed?
Whether it's a
Is that too brief?
whether it's a skill set or something that helps them to be an adult. I don't want to solve it tonight. I'm just saying that
Sure.
I've been struggling with that at Kevin, is to reduce it to something simple in non-academic or bullet
Yeah.
point situations so that it rolls off your tongue very, very easily.
So we will charge the steering committee, perhaps even the coalition, to come up with an appropriate elevator speech, if you will, talk about the portrait of the graduate, so it's easy for everyone, for our entire community to embrace.
Is it, you know, is it a program, is it a
What are
concept?
your exit outcomes for your high school? They're your exit outcomes. So what do you leave by the time you graduate? These are the dispositions and characteristics of the students that they've acquired over their K-12, high school career, K-12. K-12.
Yeah, I guess we're driving it with the question of what do our students need to have to know and to do in order to be successful in college, career, community, and life. So it's really just painting that picture of how we answer that question. And the work of the coalition and the work of the steering committee over the next couple of months is going to be that articulate what those are. And getting all the stakeholders to play a role in figuring out what that's going to be. Like Elise said, is it going to be integrity? Is it going to be empathy? And it's going to lead to transformational change in curriculum instruction and assessment because it's going to change the way that we look at what we do in the classroom. How do you account for assessing a student how they become empathetic or they're demonstrating integrity? So we have to think about how that's going to work, and it's going to come from a lot of work we're going to do over the next couple of meetings with the coalition as we start to build that definition up.
I'm just trying to be supportive, just to say that the easier you have people understand what you're doing, the more buy-in you get to your program, your question.
Sir, if I may put it very simply, I would say like the easiest way to describe it would be the ideal characteristics and skills that a student needs to graduate with. And although maybe right now we don't have necessarily those skills and characteristics defined, that's our goal for this, is to find those. But I would say if somebody's going to ask what is the portrait of a graduate, I would say it would be that is the ideal skills and characteristics that one should graduate with.
And then I think that the complicating factor in this is that we're talking about the students who are graduating in 2032. So we're not just talking about the students who are graduating in 2020. So we're talking about a future we're not even ready for ourselves. So we're trying to figure out what our students are going to need then. And so that's what's going to drive a lot of this as well.
So I think, just as a suggestion, that would be a meaningful definition to have on here. So it would be a capture. You got your vision, you got the other thing before that, the mission statement, and if you have a nice summary as to what this encompasses. Of course, you are talking about today, and you're talking about the future. So how you reduce that to an understanding for the public so they can get on board with those things.
No, I appreciate that because, I mean, Nike's slogan is just do it, right? It's not the rubber, the cotton, the soles that make you move from one point to another, right? I think shortening it makes a lot of sense. Thank you for that feedback.
Yeah, if you took a poll around the board here, none of us would have an idea, or I wouldn't say none of us would have an idea, but you would get 11 different opinions as to what it is. So,
Thank you.
thank you. It's not a criticism.
No, we understand.
Better than Reebok. Is portrait over?
Yes, it is.
Let's talk among ourselves.
Just checking.
Thank you, thank you. I tell you, Mr. Janelle, that's on our toes.
So what I'd like to do is to, sorry. Hello. What I'd like to do is to make a motion at this time that the Board of Education adopt the superintendent's fiscal 20-21 budget as presented for submission to the mayor as required by the city charter.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Janelle, second by Captain. Any discussion, any questions at this time? Yes, gentlemen.
So I just had a couple things I wanted to say at this point that I think can go without saying, but this is just such an important budget, I want to say them anyway. Number one, I just wanted to express just how strongly I support this budget. And number two, you know, and I think I could speak for the rest of my colleagues in saying this, that this is just the beginning of a very long road ahead. This has to go to the mayor, and then after that, the mayor has to agree that every penny in this binder is justified. That needs to go to the council, and then we need to either find 11 votes to confirm what the mayor found, or 14 votes to change something. So, you know, $10 million is a lot to ask, and I think at this time, you know, this budget, being where we are in the schools right now, this is the largest monetary ask I think that we've ever had. And I think that just speaks to where we are in this district and, you know, kind of the reality of this district. And, you know, this budget is more than just numbers on a page. This is, I think, our declaration that we're going to fight. And we need to fight. And we can't do that alone. I know everybody on this board swore an oath to advocate for public education and fight for public education. And I know we're all going to do it, but especially for this budget, the effort needs to be there, I think, across the board, but we need, and you know, Mr. Ginelli has, the community relations aspect has been his baby for years, and I think we really are going to need to push to get the public involved. So we need to sell this to City Hall, and you know, I mean, history tells us, if history tells us anything, is their minds are already made up. I don't think they've approved a recommended board budget in the past 20 years. So it's going to be up to us to fight to change their minds. And, you know, I'm just, for lack of a better word, begging my fellow board members and everybody here in the audience and members of the council that are in the audience that I know will do anything for public education is that we're going to need to fight. And I hope that, I know you guys will fight, and I hope that your colleagues will fight along with you, and I hope that my colleagues will fight along with each other and come together and really get this budget through as is and as recommended by Dr. Sell, because it's just that important. So I'll do that.
I just want to thank Courtney and Rich for all the work that went into all of our meetings. We had, you know, the finance committee and several workshops before we got to this place. And I want to thank Rich for including the full board through the workshops so that we can all ask questions and be involved. I think it's just so important. But to echo what Al said the other night, this budget being the largest monetary ask, along with the recent bond proposal, that with state reimbursement will come down to $8 million in addition to the $10 million, is a big ask of our local taxpayers. And it's to make up for the shortcomings of a failed ECS formula that is going to take 10-year implementation based on old data. If the phase-in amount each year is truly not based on current data, I question whether we should be asking for an even more accelerated ECS phase-in. So just to put that out there, that I fully support the ask to accelerate the ECS timeline. But meanwhile, we face a dire situation for our kids that we are meant to serve, and it's our job to advocate at all levels, any and all levels, which is why I will support this budget. While $10 million seems like an exorbitant amount, this is not the largest percentage amount that we've ever requested in the past 20 years. However, in keeping with being realistic, the city does have its limitations, just like the state. I mentioned this same time last year, that Danbury is not the same as a Norwalk or a Stamford, and that we don't have the same tax base. And in my opinion, the per pupil expenditure across towns is not really comparing apples to apples either. And it does not reflect all of the money that the city puts into our schools.
it is important to realize that we will have to make some tough choices at the end of this very long process. Last night I was blown away by Dr. Zaletta's stories at Rogers Park, one of which about a student coming from a remote part of Mexico only speaking in a Mayan dialect, another a student from Brazil only, coming in at the middle school level, only having a few years of somewhat of an education. That really struck me. But for people to really hear our claim, I think we need to focus on the stories that are actually affecting people versus numbers. Again, last night's presentation was very well done. It was comprehensive, it was compelling. I think you should bring Dr. Zaletta along with you when you present this to the mayor. And I hope the council will see it as we did.
Thank you, Rachel. Any other comments? Joe?
Thank you. I'd like to echo Rachel's comments first. Rich, thank you very much for all the work you did on this. This is the easiest committee I ever had to not vice chair because you did all of the work. And a special thanks to Courtney because you did a great job on this. And what's even more amazing is you had very little lead time on this because you just got here. And this is hard. I'm absolutely in support of this budget. This is not just the budget this isn't the budget that we want, it's the budget we need. And it's not we don't need this budget to do more. We just need we need this budget to just do what we're supposed to do. To restore what we've lost and to meet our obligations to our kids. And yeah, we're not Stanford. And comparing us to Stanford or Greenwich or Sharon or Cornwall is probably not perfectly apples to apples. It's perfectly okay to compare us to Meriden. It's perfectly okay to compare us to Middletown or to Hamden or some of the other peer towns. And we're dead last in school funding, and that's got to change. And it's got to change, and it's got to change soon. We do need more money out of the state of Connecticut. There's no doubt about that. I'm happy to go and jump up and down and lobby our state for money. But I'm also happy to go and jump up and down and lobby our city for more money. And to be frankly honest with you, we wouldn't need a 7.34% increase this year if in the past 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, in the past 6 years, budget requests of a 4.89% increase weren't reduced to a 1.81. Or 4.59 wasn't reduced to 1.78. Or 4.72 wasn't reduced to 1.79. Or 5.45 to 3.12, or 5.85 reduced to 2.08. Or last year, 5.85 reduced to 3.04. In other words, we're here because the board presented responsible budgets in years past that were cut. Now, they weren't cut for malice, they weren't cut for meanness, they weren't cut because nobody cared, but they were cut. They were what they are, and they are what they are. We are where we are, and we need this money. And yeah, we need more from the state, we need more from the city. I'm very excited about the commitment we've seen from other elected officials outside of this Board of Education to education this year. And we're going to need to go, and we're going to need to ask them to honor that commitment and carry it forward for this budget. I'm happy to go advocate for this. Again, thank you to Courtney and Rich and Dr. Salenkara and Kelly for telling us what we need and why we need it. I'm on board and I hope everybody joins me. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, this motion on the floor has been moved and second. All in favor of the motion, can I hear aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstention? Motion so carried. Mr. Janelli, thank you again. Courtney, thank you. You did a beautiful job. Dr. Sam?
Even in the darkest days, we see some brightness at the end of the tunnel. And so was that group that was here tonight, the teachers that were here in a school that was really transitioned 1 year, second year, third and fourth. And yet because of the resiliency of the teachers and their passion, they've come through it. I'm just proud again, and it just blows me away to say again, we have 7 schools of distinction again. You all heard the budget, that's right. Shouldn't think, well, how did that happen? Well, say thank you to the teacher and administrator, because they really worked hard. We had a slide, I think, from Courtney, where they're talking about the literacy books, and they're coming from the teachers on the shelves, and they do. They go out and, the national average now is about $400 or $500 that teachers spend, and it just happens. And I know what you were saying before, and I hope together we work together to really bring the resources. In this agenda that I'm giving you, there's a statement at the end that the Supreme Court of Connecticut found severe deprivation of critical education resources in the Alliance school districts. And as an Alliance district, Danbury lacks sufficient preschool experience, bilingual services, reading and math intervention, science and materials, necessary staff and services, in order for our students to have sustainable and equitable access to education that is comparable to surrounding communities. I mean, that says it all. And our people, with that, I get calls from these other schools that, well, how do you do it? Call the principals. I mean, I've got some stuff from Chris in terms of did an analysis across the state, how underserved we are. We all know that, and yet they step up and they have these achievements. So when we go forward with the budget this year, we'll be talking about and celebrating this. And people will turn around to me and say, you know what, how'd you get 7 schools if you need this money? Well, just think what we could do if we had some. Wouldn't that be a wonderful thing? So anyway, we'll be having these schools of distinction to the board meeting, and also to Hartford. We'll get to give them a certificate because we're really proud of them. You want to give us the names? I know I gave them to the board.
Yeah.
Can you go through them?
Oh, sure.
While you're doing that, number B is the day in Hartford is Tuesday, April 22nd at 11 a.m. to 1, right?
22nd or 28th?
I'm just checking you guys. 28th at 11 o'clock up in Hartford. I think I heard Rich say that when he talked to some of the legislators, he did say it's pretty important to get a good representation up there. We'll have our kids up there, we'll have the schools of distinction, we can get parents and what have you up there, it'll be beneficial. Can you read those for us?
Sure. So those would be Haystown School, Melridge Primary, South Street School, Great Plains School, Ellsworth Avenue, and Stanley School, and AIS, schools of distinction. And there's a mix of...
I got a call from...
and high achievement for some of those schools.
Pardon?
There's some schools that receive the distinction for growth, some schools receive the distinction for growth and high achievement as well.
You may recall 3 years ago, out of all the schools in Connecticut, one of our schools from that list was recognized as a Blue Ribbon School. So, that is assessed too. That's an ongoing activity. So it is a pretty solid group of schools that are competing for these scores and these successes. So I got a call the other day from a reporter saying, I see there's a problem with finding math teachers. Not only math teachers, bilingual teachers, ELL teachers. And we were fortunate last year, we were looking at a program with NYU, New York University, and I'll have Kevin talk a little bit about that. What are we doing in Danbury to go out and locate other teachers other than that? Our own growing program. We have, you want to talk about the NYU program a little bit?
Sure. So tomorrow evening we have we are launching our partnership with NYU at Danbury High School at 6 o'clock. There we will have there will be representatives from NYU speaking to the partnership. The partnership allows us to partner with the university. The university will go out and recruit folks who have a bachelor's degree and are considering a career in education. The program is an online master's degree program. However, staff, faculty from NYU, they work with the students and help them go through an intensive 1-year professional development program. And frankly, given our commitment to equity, culture, and confidence, In many ways, we are aligned with the values that NYU has in the program, and so we feel like it's a really good partnership. The tuition it comes at a cost. However, NYU is working with anyone who's interested in the master's degree and working to identify scholarships and grants to help subsidize the tuition. Successfully, after the candidates have completed the program, they can of course apply for a position anywhere, but as part of the partnership, they will be in our school community, working as mentees, working under the guidance of our certified teachers. And so, of course, as part of this recruitment effort, we will be recruiting regionally and throughout the state of Connecticut, and hope that at the end of the program, they will stay here in Danbury. And so, in many ways, we are seeing this as an opportunity to try to find and land more diverse candidates, and then also help us to fill positions that are hard to fill positions. And so we are starting at the secondary levels. It's a secondary focused program. So we're starting specifically at Danbury High School and Rogers Park Middle School for year one. And then hopefully, if it's successful, we can extend the partnership with other secondary schools.
So NYU is the name, but you need to know we work very hard with Westcon. We have grow our own programs, so we have a lot of connections with them. This is just another, branch going out to see if we can, find second career folks that would come back in with a different mindset, and particularly the sciences and mathematics. We're having a real challenge there. We could be lucky to find folks that want to come to a second profession.
And just for some context for the board and the community, there's a program called New York City Teaching Fellows. When I worked in New York City, I found a lot of successful teachers from that program. The person who's actually leading the NYU effort was the former president and designer of the Teaching Fellows program in New York City. And so she's had a lot of success with this second career-like focus. And she's been with NYU a couple of years now. They're in California with this partnership. They're in Florida. They're in New York, and a number of schools in New York. We're actually their first school in Connecticut. So they're excited about the partnership. Typically, these comes as a significant cost to districts to partner. Sal worked his magic, and it's at no cost for us. We just have to commit to bringing them in and having them work as substitutes in our district, which we're happy to do so because we need substitutes in our district. So it's a great deal for us.
So if you have a bachelor's and you want to work, and you don't want to be on board anymore, there's a program for you. You get paid for your labor.
I might take you up on it, get paid. Kevin, is tomorrow night, can board members attend at the high school?
Absolutely.
So it would be at 6 p.m.?
Encouraged, yes. In the Black Box.
Thank you.
Bring a person with a bachelor's, you're admittance. I have the legislative update here. It says draft, I'd like to send it out tomorrow. I sent it out the other day. This is basically what we've been looking at. However, I do want, I think what Rachel said makes sense. I love to go to my 10th year, but we looked at those new students that came in and we did some number crunching. And Lord and behold, it almost equated out to the money that we need, at least in the Alliance, $5 million, which would be the 2 years in advance to help us get some of the things that we talked about this evening. So that's why we jumped one. And sort of if they want to give us more. I did find out though that I think the governor put in only 2.7 million or 2.2, I'm not really sure, for all of ECS across the state. So, to ask for this may be a real struggle, but I think we have a great story about it, and I'm hoping we have a chance. It's reasonable, and the commissioner was down, we talked with him, he certainly got our plight, and we're going to present this to him as well. If he helps us out, we're not asking for anything but 1 year acceleration on a mortgage that they owe us. So hopefully it'll happen. Also, if you look at the attachment, when we had the mayor and the legislators and the commissioner at the high school, as one of the students talked about in her presentation,
we gave them this Danbury delegation emergency assistance. I've added something to it, or I said with the city today, in light of last night's meeting. I put in that, you should have it, it's the page, the last page, it should be highlighted for you, I think. Is it not? I'm sorry. Okay, number 3, it reads, the district requests assistance with the lease costs for buildings which are required in the short term to accommodate the immediate classroom needs, since it's impossible to construct any project to accommodate the current projected loan. The addition is further, if appropriate, permit a lease purchase agreement which would be eligible for state reimbursement to accommodate current projected loan. So, if we go through our facilities committee and we decide we want to, instead of build, go and lease something, when we broached this about 8 or 9 years ago, it was a dead no. We could argue here that there's a need, and if the state wants to step up, and we find a building that we think would work, instead of going from the ground up, then they permit us to lease it or purchase it, and then reimburse the town of Danbury at their reimbursement rate. I think we at least need to put in here if we're going to want to talk about it, because we don't stand a chance if we don't do that. So today, Tony and that group talked, and this is what came out. So anyway, this is what, we're going up to the legislators and meet with their leadership next Thursday, and we'll be talking about this. And then again, when we go up there as a group, we'll be talking about, these are our talking points. That's it.
There's an appropriations public hearing tomorrow. Do we know, is anyone going up tomorrow?
I got the education agenda, and in fact, I think I sent it was Finley, fellow, when I send it out to you, usually, the CJF case, and the appropriation committee, and the education committee, I should say. Their highest priority is closing the achievement gap and assisting school districts with a changing population, i.e. particularly ELL. So the leadership at Hartford is looking at us, in essence, about our needs as well, and that's their focus. I don't know how appropriations are going to play out, so if you do go up there, I'd like to know what you get.
Can I just make a comment about the news article today about the high school?
Yes.
Some of you may see that today the Associated Press has picked up an article about, you remember I came to you to talk about the Title IX action. The Office of Civil Rights has been conducting an investigation over the last several months into whether or not it is a violation of Title IX for transgender students to be competing against our girls track athletes, and whether or not their competition in those arenas has deprived girls of access to Title IX benefits, meaning scholarships, trophies, awards. And one of the students involved in the action is a Danbury High School student. We understand today from the Associated Press article that it has been said that the districts, there are 3, have been named in a federal lawsuit. One of them will be our district. We have not received service yet of that complaint, but I expect that it's coming. And the lawsuit sues the SEAC, or the SEAC, Connecticut Interscholastic Association, competitive association group, sues for their rules that they apply if you can compete in these fora, and also identifies, as I said, these 3 other boards of education. We have had counsel representing us throughout the OCR investigation, and that will continue, but I just wanted you all to be aware that it has hit the media, and I suspect that service will be coming soon, and I'll be able to bring information to you about litigation strategy and where we stand in executive session in the future.
I think I forwarded something from Dan Donovan.
Yeah.
That was
Kim, did we collaborate with the other 2 districts as to their strategy?
Yes,
Yeah.
in fact, Shipman and Goodman is representing all of the districts, I believe it's all 3 of the districts, and also SEAC. So they, for economies of scale, makes a lot of sense. And it really, I think when we saw the OCR action, we anticipated it would eventually move to another floor, and so here we are.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Dr. Carroll.
Okay, so, I'm sure you might grab okay, so this is just more of a general update. I'm excited to share with everyone. I know Mayor Mark mentioned the mention of a trip to Nashville for some members, and I'd like to explain a little bit about what that was or what that is. And considering that, I think just prior to the board changing over, we made a presentation about college and career clusters and pathways. And so I'm sure you remember this document was handed out along with a presentation about the importance of preparing our graduates. This ties nicely with some of the portrait of the graduate work that is happening and the timeliness of us looking for space in the community and what that space is, how we're going to utilize that space. So we do have a small group that we're able to put together, representative group to travel to the academies of Nashville to do a field study visit. They do host other school districts twice a year, once in the fall, once in the spring. So Mayor Mark Bowden will be attending. PJ Prunty from the Chamber of Commerce, Dr. Sal, Dan Donovan from the high school, Melissa Nadeau, who's our STEM coordinator, is also in charge of our Perkins grant. The state gives us money for college and careers and CTE. And that is a grant that is mostly being used to fund some of this. And we've also cobbled together some other grant funding. Myself, I am going, and Amy Scolino from the board. So the reason why these folks were chosen is because in order to transform what our learning systems look like here in Danbury and really transform them, we need everybody to be on board and to have an understanding of what that is, so that when folks are, we can't be on every single steering committee, 2020 task committee, and all of these meetings, but if we have folks who are educated with the vision of where things could go and what we want it to look like, then they will see things differently as they are in their planning as they're looking at things in the community. I tried to tie in some things last night about looking at space differently in buildings in town that could be used and repurposed for educational purposes. And so I'm hoping that this trip takes a couple of folks who are normally out in the community and doing these things as part of other town committees to spark ideas and to collaborate with the school district on a way that we can move this vision forward together. Because it doesn't happen by sharing these ideas alone in isolation with other educators. It involves the business community. It involves partnerships. It involves a lot of community relation. It involves town and finance folks and our mayor leadership and our school leadership. And so I'm hoping that we build a vision together when we go down there and we come back and we share what that could look like. It's an amazing, it is a national model, and it is a highly articulated visit. It's a very busy visit, visiting many of the different pathway high schools that are in part of the Nashville and Greater Nashville metro area. And we'll be arriving March 9th through 11th is the actual main conference. There is one evening prior to that conference on March 8th that a couple of us will be attending for some additional pre-conference activity related to this. That is just, it's more important, it's more educator focused as opposed to kind of nice to know. I think there are career fair exploration pieces, and what was the other one, Amy? I think I'm putting you on the spot. The freshman seminar, how to set up the freshman seminar for exploration to get students to understand how to select pathways and how to get excited about those. So we are going down there to learn from this national model. And the other piece that sort of kind of paralleled with this that was happening at the same time, Melissa and I were attending another conference from the NC3T, which is the National Center for College and Career Readiness. The state of Connecticut has partnered with this group with the intention of helping, how do we get Connecticut high schools and Connecticut school systems to bolster their work in this area. So this group was brought in to provide technical assistance to the state of Connecticut to get this going. It goes in partnership with some of the graduation flexibilities that we spoke about and how they're trying to gear high schools in these areas. The Career and Pathways Sample Occupations and Programs of Study book outlines tons of possible career pathways just a couple to whet your appetite. We have, let's see here, construction pathways, insurance, securities, and investment pathways, natural resource pathways, biotechnology system pathways, power structural technical system pathways, manufacturing pathways, and they go on and on. And so the idea is to graduate students from high school with a high school degree. They're prepared for college, but they're also leave with industry recognized credentials in areas that they have explored, to give them some background on 21st century jobs that are in demand, and also to give them a leg up as they go off into college or they go into the workforce. They have these industry recognized credentials under their belt and they're ready to go. I am going to forward some of the links to some of the new board members since the changeover to both the presentation, some of the videos that talk about what the academies are, because it's a great little video, it's wonderful. I'll give you a sense of what these things look like. But we're very excited. Very quickly back to the NC3T. So in these communications, they mentioned that they would be sponsoring a couple of school districts to partner with to provide specific school-based technical assistance. So we're working with the state, and they also wanted a couple of high schools to work with. So Melissa and I sat up next to these folks, and we were encouraged to apply, and we were selected. So we will be part of, in October 2020, a cohort called the CTE Pathway Systems Institute, and we have more details will be forthcoming. But basically, they'll provide technical assistance to us to help us look at the assets that we currently have and the courses that we have, and what we're able to do to create some pathways and get that process going. A great example would be our CNA program at the high school, which is wonderful. Kids graduate high school and have a CNA degree, they're ready to go. If they delay their entry into high school, they have a CNA to get going with if they want to, college, not high school. Right, if you want to, right, they can work while they are attending college. It also looks better on an application when they're applying for medical programs that they're trying to be competitive and get into. They've got their patient contact hours already set. So these are all advantages and opportunities that we can give our students. And we get very creative with our space. I think the ninth grade academy that was on paper, and space that we're looking at, and how can we think of those things differently, informed by this visit and some continued conversation around these pathway models, thinking differently about some of the space options that we're considering.
So Joe read about 5 years of requests denied kind of things with the budget. I said to the board, one of the challenges that we have is, even though you get cut, how do you move ahead? We can't accept that for our kids. And there are a number of things for us, people having some foresight to look at things that would be helpful. And this is just another thing that we try to do, even though our resources are limited. But if you can read the writing on the wall, if we do these things, the state's knocking on our door, and we have an opportunity, if they would just let us purchase lease something and be able to start some of this stuff, it gives us some leverage to say, this is what we're doing, this is what you want the workforce in Connecticut look like. How about you come up, step up, and help us out? I think it tells our story that way. So we're excited about the trip.
Yeah,
And it should fit right into it.
very exciting.
And this evening, the portrait of the graduate. Plans coming together. That's the way.
No, I'm going to go back to the conversation that I had with Amy a little bit. She asked a great question. She's like, how do we, with this kind of budget, how do we, oh gosh, of course it would be mine on top of it. Sorry about that. How do we dream this big, right? When we look at what the Academy's national model looks like, it's amazing. It's the dream. I keep calling it the dream. And it was a great question. How are we wrestling with these budgets and still having these dreams? And the short answer is that you can't stop dreaming for what the vision needs to look like, right? And I always fear about a little bit of apathy around these budget processes. Well, we're just not going to get it, or we can't do certain things, so we stop trying to do certain things. But probably the longer answer is that we have things in place now that if with a little creativity and a little bit of innovation, we can move some things around, very low cost, redesign some courses that we currently have on the books, and sequence them in a way and bring content in that allows for students to be prepared to access these certifications with some simple changes. So we start small, we take baby steps, And we still keep the dream in mind, and as we are looking for space, as we are looking at resources, and as businesses in town start to know that we have this vision, they may come and approach us with some resources, or hey, come into our manufacturing facility, we'd love to do internships with your students. We can give credits that way, get creative with our students working in the community, being prepared, and also serving. I can't tell you how many businesses around here, folks are looking for certain skill sets in different areas that kids don't quite come out with in high school, but yet don't necessarily need a bachelor's degree that are high-paying jobs. So we'd like to fill in some of those gaps and support the local workforce while also supporting our kids as they travel along in their career exploration as well. Thank you.
Karen, could you send that link to all of them?
I can. I will resend that whole presentation, and in the presentation, like in the last slide, are the links to the videos for the Academies of Nashville, and you'll get a sense of what it is that we're going down there to look at. Thank you. I'm glad I heard you say I love Nashville. We're going to try to do a second cohort in the fall. If we can get the house. So,
Put that out.
Yeah.
One of my favorite places on earth. Yes, I think middle school lab furniture, those are lab tables. I sent you, we've got some students who were looking at some of our tables and felt that perhaps they were asbestos in them. As expected, we take that seriously. We have procedures and policies, and we've outlined in that memo. We've contacted the authorities, they've come down, they've looked at it, they examined it. Do you have any update on that, Courtney, in the meeting yesterday?
No, nothing from more recent than yesterday. I know I met with the students and got the state feedback.
Courtney, would you speak again?
Sure, yes.
No, nothing further than what Dr. Saad just updated us with. Those students, the students were met with yesterday with the state officials, and they plan to have a response about remediation and taking it very seriously. But we have to partner with the state to determine what we have to do in response.
I just wanted you to be aware.
Quick question. How did the complaints get landed on Anne's line? Just curious. How did it come through Anne? It was at Broadview, correct?
Yes.
Yes. Anne Queen? No? Okay.
That's what the memo says.
I saw that on there.
No, it came through and Rich, so I don't know. I mentioned it might have been on the CC or something. I don't know.
Yeah, the students raised the issue and then through the custodians, and the custodians reached out to Rich Jalbert. I'm not sure what Ann needs involved with, but he needs involved as well, besides classrooms that are in her school. But Rich Jalbert, our director of facilities, has been meeting with the students numerous times. He showed them the asbestos policy. He's been in contact with the state. They came in to do their assessment. I'm just not sure what they found. That just happened, I think, yesterday. So we'll keep you apprised. But the students raised the concern. I'm not sure how they came up with the concern, but there was material that in the desk, if it's scratched and aerolized and released, then it could potentially be dangerous. But the state at first initially said it didn't appear to be a concern, but they came out to do the assessment yesterday to check, and we'll deal with it based on what their findings are.
I think they're going to do some hair sampling. That's what they're doing. We're going to assess that and give us that. That's why we're going to have to remediate it. But I don't know.
I just didn't know, I want to make sure that E.T. Thomas was involved.
Oh, yeah. I will vouch for that she's been intimately involved. She has been intimately involved.
Okay, next on the agenda, are there any committees report?
Yes.
Dr. Grace?
The task force and facility with the site facilities met last night to review the enrollment projections, discuss options and recommendations for short and long-term facilities, and we'll meet again after that Academies in Nashville trip in March. The The policy committee meeting was canceled to allow more time to review the about 300 pages for series 3,000 on business and non-operational, non-instructional operations. So we will meet on Wednesday, March 4th at 6, and subsequently on the first Wednesday of each month. I did touch base with all of my PTOs. I attended the AIS PTO meeting, Westside, who just had their science fair 2 weeks ago, and I went there and to view the projects, which they had some amazing projects there. And there's a video on Hatters TV if you'd like to get a glimpse. It's really great. There was a question about Power School, and that came up at the PTO meeting about there's a weight that's, I don't know if it's being correctly used. The number of questions are being used to weight the grade instead of the overall percentage of an assignment or an assessment. So if there's different number of questions, then the weight is different across classrooms or across all of the middle schools. I don't know if anyone was aware or that has been mentioned.
The weighting is different.
The weighting is different, it is cross.
So within a department, it's usually the same. So there could be, like science may have a certain percentage for labs that social studies or ELA doesn't have and things like that, but across the department, they should be similar.
Okay, so a parent was saying that across same subjects, different teachers, different number of questions for the assessment or classwork or anything, assignment, it weights it on that instead of like the overall percentage grade.
Okay. Look at it more specifically. I mean, teachers do have some professional flexibilities within the course. The weights and the categories are the same.
Okay.
But then there are some standard assignments that everybody has to have in assessments. And then there are some individualized teacher things based on, again, the needs of what's happening.
But I'm wondering, the question, not teacher, did they say that?
It's a
that
system.
The Power School system
Right.
calculation may be looking at it differently.
Right,
That-
right.
I don't know.
So what
It's a
input is?
It's a system issue that we do need to look into. The parent had brought it to my attention, and I had talked to Gina about it. We had, she agreed it is something that needs to be explored, so it is something we have to do.
So it's not that, it's the system.
It's a system, right. It's the weight doesn't match what is outlined in the beginning of
They
the
do have a weighting
course.
component, so take a look at it. Thank you.
And then DHS, there's a PTO meeting on Wednesday during our board meeting on February 26th.
Any other committees report, Amy?
I attended ACE Parents Night on February 6th. And that was I'd walked through ACE a couple of years ago when I first came on the board, but I was like pleasantly surprised. There were a lot of parents there, a lot of parents, because they also do conferences that same night. So parents, the students were there. It was like a full classroom. I said, wow, this is like better than any PTO meeting I've been to so far, But, wow, talk about principals and teachers. I mean, all of our principals and teachers work really hard, but these people, oh my goodness, and they work really hard. And I talked to a couple of teachers and a couple of students. Anyway, they work really hard, and they were really appreciative that a board member would come by. April 8th is a career day at ACE in the morning, and then in the afternoon is a Renaissance Fair. Anyone's interested in attending, there's a graduation in June, and then June 4th is a poetry, something happening with poetry at Hatters Park at 5:30. Just a couple things, but as your calendar for the spring. But they really, I ran into someone I knew who had her grandson there. They're just really doing a great job, really working hard.
Any other committee?
Very briefly, I attended the Park Avenue PTO meeting. It's my liaison school, but it's also my kids' school, so I go to most of the PTO meetings anyway. As usual, the PTO board is doing a great job. Dave Krafik is an amazing principal. They do a really good job of organizing in advance of their PTO meetings because they need to coordinate a Spanish and a Portuguese interpreter for all of their PTO meetings, or a good chunk of the audience would not be able to participate. And they had both there, and the usual number of people, but they introduced me as the board liaison, but it was the usual PTO meeting.
Mr. Young?
Just to let you know, on the Community Relations Committee people, I'm going to be reaching out to ask you if February 19th at 6 o'clock would be a good time to meet. February 19th is not. Okay.
We're doing a superintendent evaluation on the 19th.
Oh, right. Okay.
He wants to go to your meeting.
Yeah, right?
Sure, schedule that meeting.
No, we will not do any, we're doing the superintendent evaluation because we will not have.
I'll come up with another date.
Okay. So, yes, let me finish the superintendent evaluation committee. All the members, please, on the 19th, and any board members is open. Come, please, so we can start the process. Okay?
At what time?
6 o'clock. We should be finished by 7:30.
It's only 2 meetings.
So, like what Rachel said, the sites had a joint meeting last night, but I just want to, because the last 2 sites meetings that we've had have really been more of informational in nature. I'm hoping that, we haven't really met as a committee yet to open a dialogue as a committee, and we still have a couple housekeeping things that we have to take care of. And I was wondering if the 26th, maybe at 6 o'clock before our regular meeting, if we can meet as a committee just to kind of open a dialogue before the trip to Nashville, so that when we come back, and the mayor mentioned another joint meeting with the 2020 Task Force and sites, so I think just so the committee can kind of start the 26th.
What time, Joe?
6.
6.
It's good for me.
Just make sure you call Carol tomorrow, first thing early tomorrow, so you put it on the calendar and get the emails up, okay?
Joe, can you talk about last night? There was some things were laid out there that she's still talking about, particularly about the middle school, and then those concepts that you produced. The demographic stuff will work on registration. The other thing that would be good for us to start talking about.
That's what I was hoping.
So those two will be on the
Yeah.
Nashville trip and last.
Yep, absolutely.
I want to thank Rachel, Ms. Janelle, myself, and Kate. We were up to Danbury High School on last Thursday night and all that rain. And it was a beautiful affair. What was the name of the group that invited us?
The cultural.
Yes, yes. What an amazing group of young people. And they had the questions ready for us. And I thank you all for being there to support the board. I personally want to, as chairperson, thank all of you because we've had a lot of meetings. I mean, a lot of meetings the last week until we just really wore out. So, I really appreciate you giving up your time, come early. Like last night, half of us hadn't even had dinner at 7:30 at night. Came from work, did
You got
3
some
meetings.
peanuts, though.
We got some peanuts. So, you guys are really supportive. And as I said earlier, when we got elected to the board and we did our election, our officer, I'm here to work with you and help support you. And whatever I can do as the board chair, I'll be happy to do it. I just want us to work together, open up. If you have any questions, don't think a question is dumb. Let's work together and get what we need to get done, okay, for our students and our staff, okay? Okay, if there's no other questions? Oh, last thing, I have asked Amy to put together another workshop with Kate to look at our roles and responsibilities again. And her and I will talk as to how we're going to go about doing it. And it's going to be like an hour before board meeting, or an hour and a half, okay? Not an extra day, okay? If everybody is comfortable with that, I need a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Oh, I'm sorry. Did you want to talk about last night?
We're talking about the facilities. Sites.
Oh, I just think so.
There's a motion?
Second.
Who made the motion? Okay. Rachel, seconded?
Second.
Okay, Joe, all in favor?
Aye.
Good night.